So now this is Camp 2, and it says 21,300, depends on where your camp is. It can be all the way to 22,000 feet. You definitely feel the altitude here. Being there 1 hour is not a big deal. Being there 2 hours is not a big deal. You stay a few hours and everything starts changing. People get nauseous, they start throwing up, you have massive headaches. A lot of people wake up the next day and they know they can't go on and they need to go down. So what you don't want to do in mountain climbing is completely exhaust yourself to the point that you want to be stopping. If you do that, you're going to have a very rough next day and you may not recover. So slow and steady is much better than being a jackrabbit and beating the team to the next camp. That it never works out well for most people. The people up front on these high altitude climbs, usually by the end of the climb, they're not doing as well. The typical person. I'm not talking about the very gifted Ed Viesters or somebody who has natural gifts to do well. Most people going slow do better. This is the base of Lhotse face. Again, you can probably see the scale. This is a person. This is a person, and this is an extremely steep beginning to the 5,000-foot climb. Once you go up the Lhotse face, in the middle of it at around 24 and a half, somewhere between 23 to 24 and a half thousand feet, you're going to carve a platform out of ice for yourself to put your tent there. Some of the climbing is pretty steep, like you see here, and you kick footsteps, and other people have gone ahead, so you're climbing with crampons. And this is me. This is the middle of Lhotse face at 24,000 feet. And now I'm going to show you the angle from the side because, again, this picture doesn't do it justice. You cannot get a sense for how steep it is. This is our camp that we've chiseled out over here. And this is the steepness of the Lhotse face. The South Col is here at 26,000 feet. So once you wake up and you get your gear back on, you're going to come across here. This is a yellow band, and then you have the Geneva Spur up here, and then you're at South Col. This is another place that in 2016 I had kind of a traumatic experience. We had just gotten there, we had set up our tents. I suddenly hear a whole lot of excitement and chatter, and I jumped out of the tent. You know, you obviously don't want to step anywhere. If you're not tied down, you're going to go straight down. So I stood right here by our tent on the path, and everybody was pointing to this dot that was coming down. Somebody had radioed from above that something is coming down, and it was a climber. He had not, we don't know exactly what happened, but he had not double clipped into a rope, and his one clip failed, and he was coming down, and he went down the entire 5,000 feet. It was so sobering to see someone going past you at that high rate of speed. They're doing everything they can to stop themselves, clawing at the ice, trying to stop anything they can, and that look of horror on their face that you catch just a glimpse of because they're going so fast. And we all, on the way down, we all saw where this person landed. The ground is white, and there's a patch of red where this person smashed into. Well. So you see these things, and we all just, nobody said a word. We all just sat down, first waiting for this person to make it to the bottom because you're looking at the whole thing happening. And then everybody realizes this could be me. So it was a very, very tough night over there in Camp 3, having just seen that and knowing that you're going to be doing what that person was trying to do the next morning. But when you get to Camp 3, again, even though you want to just go here and get it over with, you can't. So you climb back down to Camp 2, you climb to Camp 1, and you go to base camp. This is what you call your last acclimatization rotation. After this, you're down in base camp anywhere from 3 days to a week, recovering and letting your body strengthen up in a place of higher oxygen. And then you're going to go for your summit bid. So I'm going to just start from going from Camp 3 here, not show you going back down again. So this is a look up Lhotse face in the morning from Camp 3. You can see the rope. It's right here. This is what they call the fixed rope. That is fixed by Sherpas. A Sherpa from each team, they form a group and they fix a rope in the steep sections. Very, very different if you had to do it. Very difficult. Very, very difficult. And here's a picture looking back. So let me tell you what you're looking at. This is Camp 2 down here. Camp 3 is around here on this steep slope, and this is above Camp 3. Base camp is down in this gorge, and this mountain here is Kalapatar, where you get the most beautiful views of Everest by climbing this. The best pictures of Everest are from up here. It's about 19,000 feet, I think. So you can see that you do some climbing on rock with your crampons. Completely counterintuitive, but there's nothing you can do. You're going from ice to rock, and on rock, it's the worst thing you could climb with. You're using way too much upper body strength when going over rocks, but you don't have a choice. This is the yellow band that we're crossing here. So this is South Col. At 26,000 feet, it is the saddle between Lhotse, which is right here, and Everest, which is going to be to the right over here. The stuff you see here is not garbage. There was a storm the week before, and majority of this is not even from the storm. It's from the earthquake the year before. Everybody abandoned the stuff they had and they left. And so it's a lot of frozen gear from the past year. It's kind of surreal up there. It feels like you're on the moon. Yeah. I spent the whole day going around. You know, there's all these different spots on South Col that I've read about, and I knew who camped where in 1960s or which area they were in 1970s. And if you know these things and you spend time going around, you're going to find what I consider artifacts of that they may have left behind, whether it's an ice screw from the 60s or something that's frozen in the ice. It's pretty impressive. But I spent the whole afternoon doing this. We got there, I want to say, around 11 in the morning. And you rest up here till about 8 at night, and then you go for your summit. Instead of going in a tent, I spent the whole day looking at stuff, and most of the time without oxygen, because I didn't want to use up my oxygen. And suddenly around 6 in the afternoon, I was like spent. I hadn't rested. I was pretty nervous when I realized what I had done. So I went in my tent for a couple hours, ate a little something, had a massive headache, and was very lethargic. Okay, so South Col is down here. You see these little yellow dots? I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but that's South Col.
Yeah. Totally.
And here is your toughest 3,000 foot climb. You're going It's very steep. You're going, this beginning part is not bad. You're going here, and here it gets steep, and you're climbing pretty tough angles. This is the shoulder that I was telling you about, the balcony. And Scott Fisher is right here. On that night that we were climbing, I watched a group of Indian climbers go that way from the Indian Army. And I didn't figure it out at the time. I didn't know what they were doing, but they actually walked off the mountain, is what I found out later. I don't know what they were trying to do, but there isn't a pad here. So several of them died that year, and they were not found. In fact, New York Times wrote an article about them. Wow. It's a long, lengthy article written a couple years later about what happened here, who they tried to recover, what happened to their families, and all that. So then from here you go up. This is a very narrow ridge that you're going up, and on this side you can see what you're looking at. You're looking at not just this drop off, but it actually goes 8,000 feet down. It's pretty unnerving if you are able to see during the daylight. At night, which you do most of this climbing at night, you don't see it. So when we started climbing, it was 8 at night, and by the time we came out of our tent, it took me like a half hour to put on my boots. It's amazing how inefficient you become. And got all the gear ready. There was a good 90 to 100 headlights that we could already see up here, people going up ahead of us. It was very disconcerting, and I was pretty upset with myself for letting that happen, because you don't want to get caught behind people. But the Sherpa that I was climbing with, he actually, on the way to Camp 3, got altitude sickness, and he had to be evacuated. He went down to Camp 2, and a helicopter picked him up from there and took him to Kathmandu. So I had actually climbed with his son, who was a teenager at the time, on Cho'oyu before, and I knew him. And they radioed me from base camp and said, hey, do you mind if his son, who's here, comes up? He's never climbed Everest before, but you know him, you've climbed Cho'oyu with him. I was like, no, they're a great guy. Send him up, and I waited for him. He came to Camp 3, and we met up there, and he's this energetic, positive guy. It was really awesome. So when we came out and we saw these headlights, I turned around to him and I'm like, let's try and pass him. Let's just try and pass him before we get to a higher altitude. We're never going to get past these guys. And he took it to heart. We passed every single person except for like 3 or 4 by the time we got to the balcony. And we were making great time. We passed the other ones around this area where there's some rock climbing. It was pretty unnerving, actually, trying to pass people in certain areas. Down here is not so bad because there's no drop-off on either side, but on this ridge, it's very unnerving to pass people.
Ramin, are people? How are people reacting when you're trying to pass them? Is there like some hubris involved? Do they say, "You're not passing me," or like, are they encouraging? Go ahead, no problem.
Well, you can't talk to each other, so there's no conversation because you have your oxygen mask on and you're pretty bundled up. But I'd say universally people hate being passed because you're struggling, you're doing something extremely difficult, and suddenly somebody's trying to pass you and they make your difficult task even more difficult, breaking your rhythm, getting in front of you. So there are groups that actually make sure you can't pass them. So if it's narrow enough, they'll they'll just not let you pass. And
how do they do that? How do they do that?
They tend to they stack up with each other. So like 2 or 3 people will be 2 or 3 feet apart from each other. There's no space in between, and there is no path to go past them. And the other way is to just not let you, physically not let you. Like people may elbow you back. So one thing,
sort of like Samir in at the Vegas craps tables.
yes.
Now, a few minutes ago, you had said that one of the rules of mountain climbing was to not try to be the fastest guy. Why did you want to pass everybody? Like, that seems to contradict what you said before.
Absolutely correct in what you're saying. So the last day is your last day. You don't have any climbing to do after this day. And what I learned on the other 8,000 foot or 8,000 meter peak that I climbed in 2014 was that all the slowness of the beginning of the climb had put me in the position to be much stronger on the last day than pretty much everybody. And I knew that about myself, that when it gets to be very high, if I've really taken my time and gone slow, I'm going to do well. And both of us had the same experience on the last mountain, the Cho-Oyu from 2014. So here, it's much more important that you can get to the summit in 7 or 8 hours before you run out of oxygen than to be stuck behind people and have it take 12 or 13 hours, which is a real problem. You're going to end up having to turn around and come down. So this is where experience came in handy. We could do it, and we did it. This is your last day, so you can go fast. If you don't know your limits and you go too fast, you're going to get stuck. You're going to turn around. But if you have experienced it before and you know that it's going to work for you, then it makes a lot of sense not to get stuck behind people, especially that now you're in minus 40-degree temperature and no significant oxygen. Everything is freezing. Like, it could be 60 degrees up there and you're going to get frostbite. You're just not, your body's unable to warm up because of the lack of oxygen. So, yeah.
Even with your supplemental oxygen, do you ever have a pulse oximeter? Like, do you know what your oxygen saturation is?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. So down here, before starting the summit climb, I was on oxygen. I was 73, 74%.
Oh, wow. So you're hypoxic even on oxygen?
Yes. Yeah, you're not really, you have a very low flow of oxygen, a liter at most, and there's, it's not enough.
Your pulse ox is reading 73%.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So just for our viewers, that would get him in the hospital here.
You would be alive.
Yeah, we panic in the operating room when it hits 90.
Intubated.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Suck it on a plastic tube.
Wow.
Yeah. So exactly. This is, the advantage of the weeks of being on high altitude. What your body is able to tolerate and the oxygen is able to carry at this low saturation is enough. But beyond this point, beyond South Col, where the death zone starts, you no longer have ability to adapt. You've already maximized your ability to adapt. So definitely oxygen from this point on. And on the summit, I had the oxygen off for a while up there, and I was in the 50s. I mean, you're very curious. So, I was very curious what it would be, and I was saturating in the 50s. I felt fine.
Wow.
Yeah, but you're not fine, and you suddenly realize that everything is extremely difficult to accomplish. The simple task of like putting your mask back on may take you 10 minutes. So by here, we then made it to the south summit. We stopped and had a little drink. We were the first ones there, and it's nighttime. You know, usually you like to get to the summit when the sun's coming up, and we were at South Summit sometime around 3 o'clock in the morning. And there's no one in front of us, so there is no pathway. And this I got to show you guys. This, you see this one? This is the Chinese route. This is the north side that you see. They're coming this way. And we could see lights of a couple of climbers coming up simultaneously while we were going up this way. So then we crossed this and made it to the summit. Unfortunately, still while it was dark. I'm showing you the Hillary Step here. So this is what Hillary Step looks like. This is not my picture. But it's about a 40-foot rock climb that looks a little different than this now after the earthquake. But it's a cold place. There's a lot of ropes from old years, previous years that you can get tangled in. And you are spent. You have nothing to give, and you're doing a rock climb right before the summit.
Wow.
So this picture I took from the south summit. On the way down, I'm already up and down, and you can see the people here and here and there, and that's the summit right there. Do you see the
how much room?
Yeah.
How much room is there on the summit? That looks very small.
It's very small. You can have 6 or 8 people up there. Anything more than that, and you're probably encroaching on a cornice like this with unstable sides. So you see the path here, right? You're going on the edge of the stone, but you got to be careful not to step here. You have an 11,000 foot drop on this side into Tibet. This side is Nepal. So you come here, and then right around here where the path goes, you go to Tibet, you drop down, and you re-emerge up here. So there's a drop in here, and you re-emerge, and that is the Hillary Step up there. So the reason I took this on the way down was because when I was going up, it was pitch dark still, so I couldn't see this. And this is on the summit. This is me and the climbing Sherpa I was with. And it's cool because we have the same picture on Cho-Oyu together from being on the summit there. This is the prayer flags. That's where the sun's coming up. Guys, these are leather gloves I bought at Home Depot. But I thought I was going to need them. Somehow I didn't need them. This that is bulging here is my water bottle. We got up there, I went to drink it. It was frozen solid.
Wow.
Rock solid.
Wow.
And I tried to take pictures with my camera. Both of my cameras were frozen and non-functional. Ironically, one of the guy who took the picture had an iPhone and had it deep in his clothing, and he gave it to the next person that came up after us, and he took this picture for us.
That would be amazing if you couldn't get a picture up there.
Can you?
All of that work.
No, I would have to just like. I'd have to stay till someone came up.
Or you'd have to make yet another trip. This time with a working camera.
Well, the truth is, if you don't have photographic evidence, they will not even issue you the summit permit or the summit confirmation, which Nepal government issues you. But there's been enough fraud attempts that now they require multiple photos from different stages, including the summit. So that's me on the summit. I'm like getting something out of my pocket. This is the oxygen canister. It's like the buoy bag type thing. This is a non-rebreather. And I think I'm trying to get my my pulse ox out to take my gloves off and check to see what the pulse oximeter reading is, and it was the worst thing I ever did was take my gloves off. It took good 3-4 hours before I could feel my fingertips again. It just was not warming up on the way down. So yep, that's the summit. And up there, when the Chinese group got up there, it was kind of like the Cold War. We came from one side and they came from the other side, and we shook hands and we couldn't talk to each other, but we did some showing respect type maneuvers, and they did their thing and they went down. This is the cloud cover, probably somewhere around 24,000 feet. And this is from South Summit. The sun is not, so I've come down a couple of hours. That doesn't take a couple hours. It takes like 45 minutes on the way down. I've come down about 45 minutes to the South Summit, and now the sun is coming up, and you can see the pyramid of Everest that you see with the sunrise. And guys, this is Lhotse. Remember how it looked like it was the same size as Everest? This is the 4th highest mountain in the world, and it looks tiny down there, right? I mean, we're at 29,000 feet, and this thing is, I think, 26, almost 27. Yeah, I think that's it. Ramin, this is the moon, by the way. This is not a speck. This is the moon. It was a full moon night.
Ramin, this reminds me of a photo of Samir that I knew. I know he didn't climb Everest, but I think he climbed another mountain.
What mountain?
Yeah, not quite the same, but yeah, thank you for that. I mean, that was amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Spectacular.
Absolutely amazing.
I mean, I'm just really impressed with the mental toughness that one has to have, and you have to climb this. I mean, I didn't quite understand what you meant by that until you articulated it very well with bodies flying past you and just what am I doing type of questions. I mean, that's really impressive. Very impressive.
So what do you do once you accomplish something of this magnitude that you spend years of preparation for? It's such a big goal. What do you do afterwards when you come down from this? Like, what's the next big goal? The next goal after that?
One question people always ask me is, how much time did you spend up there? And just before I made it to the summit, I actually took a fall, and I was hanging off my rope. I was the first guy up, so my climbing partner was a good 100 feet behind me, and I took a fall. I was dangling the 8,000 feet, and I didn't know how I was going to get up. I really did not have any idea whether I was going to get up, and I did. But from that point on till 15 minutes later, when I made it to the summit, I just cursed myself the whole way, saying, why did you need to do this? Because for sure, I was sure that I was not going to see my kids again, or that was the end. So I enjoyed the summit, but not as much as I would have if that hadn't happened. And on the way down and my future, the whole time I was like, if I get down alive, I'm not going to do this again. I don't need to do this again. It doesn't need to be this dangerous. So I decided to just be a good parent when I got back. I mostly have succeeded, not always.
Wow.
Now your next trek is to the bottom of the ocean, the lowest portion of the ocean, right?
That's right. That's right. Actually, my son was just teaching me hoverboarding the other day, and I did a bunch of hoverboarding. And man, I took a nasty spill. I don't know if you can see. I got a shiner over here.
I got one of those too. I was on the other day. Yeah, my kids love that thing.
Yeah, they really do, but it's kind of hard to get used to it.
That's truly inspirational, Ramin. That's amazing stuff.
Thanks.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think Ramin, we just want to, on behalf of Dr. Rhee in New Jersey and Dr. Jejurikar in Dallas, we just want to thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you at a meeting or phone or conference. It's been too long, my friend, so we'll have to catch up again.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. I look forward to seeing all of you soon, very soon.